In the host country, a Formula One Grand Prix is a source of great excitement, if only because it's such a good excuse to party. Outside the host country, well, the '88 season hasn't provided Grand Prix enthusiasts with much to get excited about. Sunday's Detroit Grand Prix was a case in point. The problem is the McLaren team. They've done their job too well. Ayrton Senna was on the pole for the 6th straight time. That ties the record of Sterling Moss and Niki Lauda. Senna beat the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger to turn 1, and as usual, the race was over. Ayrton's teammate, Alain Prost, made his way to 3rd by passing Michele Alboretto's Ferrari. Then Berger flattened a tire. Senna and Prost are 1-2. They lapped the field. They've won every race and finished 1st and 2nd in 4 of the 6. Now, Michele Alboretto, rumored frustrated and ready to leave Ferrari at year's end, compounded his unhappiness with this ill-timed turn into Sandro Nannini's Benetton. Michele later dropped out. To its credit, CBS resisted temptation, did not relieve the tedium with celebrity interviews. Instead, they tried to keep up with the attrition that virtually wiped out this field. That's world champ Nelson Piquet bailing out for the 3rd time in 4 races. The Honda-powered McLarens were the only turbocharged cars running at the end. Perhaps next year, when turbos are banned, the series will be a bit more competitive. Now, the lack of track action left lots of time for speculating about reports that next year's Grand Prix will move up the river. Chris Economaki of National Speed Sport News sounds a skeptical note.
The U.S. Grand Prix was run in Detroit Sunday for the 7th and apparently the last time. For on Saturday, it was announced that agreement in principle had been reached between the City of Detroit and the Detroit Renaissance Corporation to install a new circuit about 1.5 miles upriver on Belle Isle. This 2.8-mile circuit met with great approval from those in racing. The people in Detroit feel that it's a terrible thing to take the park away. However, one question remains unanswered. Who will pay the between $10 and $20 million needed to construct this circuit? Bernie Ecclestone and his FISA and FOCA colleagues insist that they will not go up there unless a first-rate circuit is built, and that means permanent garages and permanent hospitality facilities. There are some who say the mayor feels the racing people will pay the money. The racing people feel the mayor will pay the money. And there are others who say that Detroit business will underwrite the cost of the track. And there are others who say it'll probably come down to the sponsors having to pay once again. With less than a year to go, with our environmental permits to be secured and a lot of local opposition bound to arise, I would think that the prospects of a 1989 Grand Prix at Belle Isle are very remote.
Now, the fans in Detroit did see a fair bit of action in the streets in Saturday's Trans Am race. Pete Halsmer led the best sedan field of the year down to the start. The passing started early, and it just kept on coming. Among the early leaders, Hans Stuck in the new all-wheel drive Audi Quattro, Willie T. Ribbs in his bright yellow Chevy Camaro, and former Trans Am champ Wally Dallenbach Jr. in a Chevy Corvette. How heavy was the action? Just check out Les Lindley's battle-weary Camaro. Late in the race, Dallenbach dropped out, while Ribbs tangled with old nemesis Scott Pruitt in the blue Mercure. That handed the win to Hurley Haywood in another Group 44 Audi. You first saw that new car here on Motorweek. Now Haywood has won twice in 4 races and is the surprise leader of the Trans Am Series. Quite a feat. The new this year American IndyCar Series went to St. Louis International Raceway on Sunday. 3-time Indy 500 winner Bobby Unser was on hand to watch son Robbie make his series debut. Despite the big-name moral support, however, mechanical trouble kept young Unser out of the money. But nothing could stop Buddy Lazier, another second-generation racer. Buddy ducked under Bill Tempero, the series organizer, to take the lead early in the first of 2 legs. The 20-year-old son of racing veteran Bob Lazier then swept to his 2nd win in as many series starts, but insisted afterward that it wasn't as easy as it looks.
I think that the fact that I've won 2 races in a row would make it look as though there's not much competition. The competition is here, and it is really fierce.
We're going to turn to dirt track racing now. Over the years, Motorweek regulars have seen out-of-control sprint cars do some pretty wild things. We have never seen one pick blackberries. But there's a first time for everything. An off-course excursion for Wes Kelly at Riverside Speedway in Cottage Grove, Oregon. Left Wes in a real jam. He was okay. The car was well preserved. Over to Skagit Speedway in Alger, Washington for the Super Dirt Cup. 3-day event attracted over 100 sprinters. Most of them managed to find their way into this front chute flip. Not to be outdone, Rick Bussell took on the retaining wall, lost, and flipped right into the path of Randy Ridge and others. All hands okay. I believe this is the first time we've seen the Pacific Northwest sprinters on Motor Week, but look who's here. Familiar face, red number 11, Jeff Swindell, World of Outlaws regular, bounced off the walls en route to an $11,000 payday. And drag racing is next up. Stay with us.
Shake up your VCR. Wake up your TV. Here's the home video you've been waiting for. Dick Clark's Best of Bandstand. More than a dozen bandstand classics now on home video, featuring Bill Haley, Dion and the Belmonts, the Silhouettes, and of course, Chubby Checkers. Dick Clark's Best of Bandstand, now on home video. To get yours, just pick up the phone and order now.
Use your credit card and call toll-free 1-800-554-3800 or save COD charges by sending $29.95 plus $3.75 shipping to Bandstand Video, P.O. Box 666, Riverside, Connecticut. Call 1-800-554-3800 for your Best of the Bandstand now.
Witness incredible heights and amazing stunts when the world's hottest skaters gather for the Rock and Roll Jam Pro Skateboard Championship. ESPN.
Here's another end of a losing streak story from the NHRA Spring National Drag Races in Columbus, Ohio. Last year, Pro Stock World Champion Bob Glidden won everything in sight. This year, Glidden in the far lane hadn't made it to the finals of a point-paying race, not once, prior to Sunday's meeting with Bruce Allen on the near side in the Chevy Beretta. But Bob hasn't forgotten how it's done. With ace reaction time, he grabs the 61st notch to his Pro Stock National victory belt. On to the Nitro Funny Car eliminations. Things finally fell into place for John the Brute Force on the near side. He's up against Bruce Larson in the far lane. With the flash of the green light, Larson lost traction, had to back it off. Force poured it on, never looked back. Force grabbed the funny car victory with an ET of 5.52 seconds, a quarter-mile flight here of 262.5 miles per hour. And finally, in top fuel, young Darrell Gwynn from Miami, Florida, up against Texan Gene Snow over on the far side. The Snowman worked right down to the wire to get his car to the line after finding a faulty timing gear in the motor. All the hard work in vain, however. Snow put too much power on the ground, smoked the tires, and gave Gwynn clear sailing to the top fuel title. Darrell ran a 5:22, but there's more to the story. At over 275 miles an hour, he shredded the left rear tire at the finish line and had his hands full keeping that car off the guardrail. Now, for my money, Gwynn was a hero on both ends of the track. With Snow in the pits working on his car, Darrell could have made an easy solo pass for the money. Instead, he waited for Gene so he could face him heads up and give the fans what they paid for, and that makes Darrell Gwynn our Autolite Spark Plugs hidden hero.
On the stock car short tracks over Father's Day weekend, another streak ended. This one in NASCAR's Busch Grand National Division. Series regulars paved Lanier Raceway, where traction was a puzzle for Ron Cooper, but not for number 6, Tommy Houston, who fought his way past the 21 of pole sitter and defending series champ Larry Pearson. Houston thus became the first repeat winner of the season, and that ends a string of 13 different winners in Grand National racing this year. Series point leader Mike Alexander ran 5th at Lanier after warming up with a drive down to Somerville, South Carolina to visit with NASCAR's All-American Challenge Series. Nice hat, Mike. Alexander made the trip worthwhile with a move to the outside of number 18, defending series champion Dave Mader III. Mader got out of shape, but still managed to hold on to second place. And on the American Speed Association trail, short track ace Butch Miller had his familiar number 52 in the lead at Indianapolis Raceway Park until a flat tire forced him to pit. Butch returned one lap down, but a series of cautions worked to his favor. He eventually passed the blue number 84 of veteran Bob Seneker and held on for the comeback victory, which is first in the ASA Series this year.
Winston Cup champ Dale Earnhardt blew a motor at Pocono over the weekend and fell more than 100 points behind series leader Rusty Wallace in the standings. Earlier in the weekend, Dale's luck wasn't a lot better at Jennerstown Speedway in western Pennsylvania. Dale's busy schedule didn't allow him any practice time for this Busch Grand National North race, but in the heat race, Earnhardt, in that red and white Pontiac 68, stayed glued to the bumper of NASCAR North regular Larry Tate. But watch the tail end of Earnhardt's car as he tries to move under for the pass. Looks to me like something breaks, sparks fly, the car pitches sideways, and that's the end of the day for Earnhardt and Tate. And a tip of the helmet to Kelly Moore of Scarborough, Maine, who won that Jennerstown feature. Summer officially began this week. Americans are headed for the lake, and we'll have motorsports on the water when we continue.
Subscribe to Stock Car Racing Magazine. Get all the action from Daytona to America's short tracks. Every month, Stock Car Racing, the magazine that's won more awards for racing coverage than any other. Get the action in this special offer and free racing decals with your paid subscription. The same decals racers put on their cars. Call 1-800-441-3636. For less than $15, you get Stock Car Racing and free racing decals. 1-800-441-3636 for Stock Car Racing Magazine.
Bob Strange, B.F. Goodrich test engineer.
After years of testing B.F. Goodrich tires, we've developed the all-weather Concierge. It's a real performer in any kind of weather. I believe the all-weather Concierge is the best high-performance all-weather tire in the world. I mean all-weather.
B.F. Goodrich TAs, tested tough to make your car perform.
What do you get when you combine more than 11,000 horsepower and 100? That's what? 2 locomotive engines and a jet turbine power this brainchild of offshore racing veteran Tom Gentry. He built the boat to break all the offshore speed records. He's already shaved 50 minutes off the Miami-Nassau-Miami run. And over the weekend, Gentry bagged another world record, Miami-New York, 19 hours, 17 minutes, and 27 seconds after leaving Miami. He cruised under the Verrazano Narrows Bridge and took 13 minutes and 38 seconds off the old record. That is flying, and it's also a display of teamwork and technology worthy of our U.S. Air Force Reserve Commander's Performance Award. Congratulations, Tom, from the 440th Tactical Airlift Wing, General Mitchell Field in Wisconsin.
Now, in contrast to that mammoth marine machine, check out the Ocean Pro jet ski action. World Tour, round 3 of 13 in Oceanside, California. The air was cool and so was the water, but the competition, hot, hot, hot. We'll go first to the women's pro modified division. Watch Brenda Burns make the pass and show the form that carried her to last year's World Championship. Next up, the freestyle exhibition. No rules, do your own thing, be spectacular. Some styles obviously freer than others. Now watch the start of the men's race for a serious aerial assault on the swells of the Pacific. And the surprise ending, the winner came from Massachusetts. Dave Gordon jetted his way across the finish line first. And to carry our aquatic theme just one step further, check out this week's page from Ken Squire's Quaker State Motorsports Scrapbook.
July 1946, Washington, D.C. The first post-war running of the President's Cup on the Potomac River looked to be an easy win for Tempo 6, bandleader Guy Lombardo's Gold Cup-winning hydroplane. But in the final, Tempo 6 and the other boats with their 1910-era Hispano-Suiza engines were left in the wake of Miss Great Lakes with the power of a wartime-developed Allison airplane engine. Dan Foster drove Miss Great Lakes to an astounding average speed of some 67 7/10 miles per hour. The 1946 President's Cup opened a new era of aircraft power technology in unlimited hydroplane racing. I'm Ken Squire. Join me next week for another page from my Quaker State Scrapbook.
And I'll be back with a personal reaction to the Bobby Allison story right after this.
You wouldn't back out on your baby brother now, would you?
Me?
Hey, here it comes.
I see it. All right. She's all mine now. Hand her over. Right here?
Hey, deal's a deal.
I can't believe I agreed to this.
When a truck is built to last, like a Toyota, there's no telling how many times you'll hand it down.
That?
Thank you.
Long-lasting Toyota quality. Who could ask for anything more?
If you're like me, you want your engine to perform. You want it to run clean, and you don't want sludge. That's State with QSX. No other oil runs cleaner or fights sludge better. And the Quaker State I use in my car is the same oil you can buy right off the shelf for your car.
Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
It's the Quaker State Porsche Sweepstakes and rebate, and everybody wins. Mail in the rebate by August 5th, and you'll have $360 per case in your garage.
You'll flip over USAC midgets and sprints. These powerful race cars make for an exciting challenge. Good things come in small packages. USAC Racing. Thursday nights, live on ESPN.
Allison, gravely injured at Pocono on Sunday, will miss this weekend's race at Michigan International Speedway after starting 373 consecutive Winston Cup events. That string dates back to 1975. Now, if there is a bright spot in the story of Bobby's Pocono crash, it is perhaps the fact that one of the busiest racers in stock car history will finally get to spend some time at home. Most of the Allison clan live within a stone's throw of the fish pond behind Bobby's Hueytown, Alabama race shop. Every time I've been there, Bobby was just passing through, hustling to get to another track somewhere. But now as he heals up, he's finally going to have time to play with some of his toys, many of which are aeronautical. Bobby loves flying airplanes as much as driving race cars, and my favorite interview with him came at the end of a flight. He did a barrel roll on approach to the Charlotte airport, scared me half to death, then told me how this whole story began with a guy named Bob Sunderman.
And Bob Sunderman was the guy that evolved out of the clouds one day when Bobby Allison was 17 years old, when Bobby Allison's mother said Bobby Allison couldn't go to the racetrack. You know, he better not see in the paper that he won the heat or ran second in the feature or something like that. So the following week, old Bob Sunderman did real good. But Bobby's dad figured that whole deal out in short order and said, listen, if you're going to do it, go ahead and use your own name.
That name, of course, became one of the most famous in stock car racing. Early on, Bobby moved to Hueytown. He and younger brother Donnie, along with Red Farmer, Bobby's first racing hero, became the Alabama Gang.
Like we pulled into Bristol, and by the three fastest times in those sedans, and I won the race, and Bobby ran second, and I think Donnie had some kind of trouble. But after that, it kind of, they kind of come, when we come into another racetrack, they'd come and say, well, here comes that Alabama Gang again. They just kind of...
In the 70s, one of the sport's great rivalries saw Allison take on the factory Dodges, piloted by Richard Petty.
I feel that Richard is definitely the king of the sport. You know, that's a title that's well-earned and well-positioned and so forth. But, you know, there's still room for a few, you know, court jesters or peasants out in the parking lot or whatever position I happen to go in that thing you know, at least they had to sell me a pit effort on a lot of occasions. Nearly half of the Grand National Winston Cup wins that I have been in my own cars right out of the backyard in Hueytown.
For 16 years, Bobby chased the championship, and 5 times he finished second. Finally, 1983. His tenacity was rewarded with his own Winston Cup. By then, Bobby had spent more than half his 45 years in a rough and tumble business. He shared the good times and the bad with an old friend named Tom Glore.
I don't think you probably have your neck stuck out quite as far at Bobby's age as he did 25 years ago. I'd say the last lap at Daytona, or the last lap at Talladega, or the last lap anywhere. Hell, he's 25 years old.
February 1988, the last lap at Daytona. Now 50-year-old Bobby Allison's finest hour. With his son Davey chasing him in second spot, he becomes the oldest driver ever to win the 500. Now, just 4 months later, Bobby has been forced to the sidelines for the first time in 13 years. And I'm reminded of a story that his dad told me last summer.
His mama didn't want him to race. And naturally, we worried about the wrecks. And fortunately, he came out of them. He had several bad ones, but he come out of them all right. He said, well, I'm tough, Mom. I'm going to make it.
And I think Bobby Allison will make it again this time on the strength of his own fortitude, his faith, and the support of his remarkable family. We wish him well.
We certainly do. And with that, we have to leave for now, but if your friends have missed this edition of Motor Week, we're happy to tell you there will be an extra airing for the next few weeks. Friday afternoon at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Look for a special extra airing of Motor Week. And, of course, don't forget, Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, we come to you with our updated weekend edition of Motorweek Illustrated. I'm Bob Varsha.
And until Sunday morning, I'm Dave Despain for Chris Economaki and all of us here at Motorweek. We'll see you then.
The future belongs to those who are willing to take the challenge. Find your challenge in today's Air Force Reserve. It's a great way to serve.
Goodrich TAs and the new all-weather Comp TA. By Toyota Motorsports, where technology on a fast track is built into every Toyota car and truck you buy. By Budweiser, Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. And by Fram, Bendix, and Autobite, which are all quality products of Allied Signal.